learning how to speak up for ourselves is critical in healing. Welcome to the Black Mother Wound podcast, where we center the stories of Black women as we heal from the painful relationships with our mothers. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Black Mother Wound podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Arnise. So I was looking through past episodes, trying to figure out what I haven't talked about. And at around the same time, I got an email from someone in my Resolve group coaching program, and they had a follow-up question to something we were talking about in class. And this past week, our lesson was all about love and the grief that we feel. So this episode is not about that. That probably will be a good episode. If y'all are interested in that, please leave a comment and let me know, and I will hop right on that. But her question was about how to, in essence, set a boundary with people. And that wasn't her question, but that was my answer. And she was having interactions with people that were close to her, and they were saying things to her that left her kind of hurting her feelings, right? And I don't think it's intentional, but in essence, they were not able to show up for her the way she wanted and the way that she needed someone to show up for her. And she wanted to know how to respond in those situations, because there was some gaslighting going on where they're telling her, oh, you're being too sensitive, or you being silly, or you don't understand. And I mean, instantly I was like, oh, this is about boundaries. This is a great opportunity to talk about boundaries. And not only are we talking about boundaries, but we are also talking about how we communicate our needs. And we're going into week 5 of the Resolve group program. And just a little tidbit, I use an energetic pattern to heal the mother wound in my class, right? And we talk about chakras from week to week and how those blockages show up in our real life. And then I give them exercises and lessons and apply it to, everything that they're going through to help them move through and heal on a weekly basis. So I think when this episode drops on Tuesday, my classes are also on Tuesday this go around, we're going to be talking about the throat chakra, which is all about communication. So this is really apropos that this has come up. And as I went through, past episodes, I said, oh, I haven't directly touched on this, so this will be a good time for y'all to get in here. And I'm going to talk about not necessarily clearing the throat chakra and what that means. I'm going to be talking about how you use your voice and the blockages to how you use your voice, which is what the throat chakra is all about. So what I did was I gave her some examples of how to respond. But before I talk about what those responses are, I want us to really understand how much our mother wound has impacted how we communicate our needs with other people verbally, not only with our actions, but with the things we say and the things we don't say, and how we communicate with ourselves, how that has been impacted. But I want to really tone in today on how our interactions with other people are impacted, because we were never taught or given the space and the room to have authority over our voice, to speak up. And I feel like this is another one of those spaces where the Black mother wound is different than mainstream mother wound for non-Black and brown folks, especially Black women. And I'm saying that, well, you know what? I can also say that with brown women, because looking at environments that are heavily patriarchal, And if you have a high patriarchy, then women come under that, and under women come children. And this is what I'm about to say next. If you don't already know, this aspect of children being seen and not heard. That is a powerful thing to preach to parents, and culturally to come up that your child does not have a voice, nor should they have a voice. Because in essence, what you're saying is what a child has to say has no value. And I feel this is even more powerfully put on girls, because it's like your job is to be of service. Your job is to give to others. Your job is to be kind, to be nice, to be obedient. So what could you possibly have to say besides yes ma'am, no ma'am, okay, I'll do it, I'm sorry? And there's so much more that we've always had to say. And we have, in essence, been robbed of our voice from a very young age, not taught how to use it. And so, what I find, even especially when I look at teenage girls, the way we use our voice, we learn to use it through gossip. Like all of our talking is about talking about other people and what's happening and what's going on, and this circular conversation that leaves us on the phone all night long and watching things online that are all about talking about other people's lives and sharing opinions on what other people are doing and what they should be doing and why isn't this working for me. And there's a whole industry supportive of this communication pattern for women. In it now, it's everywhere. If you think about blogs, from the blogs we used to have, just used to read, to the blogs that you now have in the form of YouTube and podcasts where people are talking all the time about nothing, that originated from how I can see it in the way that women have been allowed to communicate and to find some power and to find some camaraderie, but it is not us really using our voice in an assertive way to get our needs met. We think we've been talking about something, but really we haven't. And when we get the opportunity, and the opportunity usually comes as a problem or a challenge, to use our voices in an assertive way, to advocate for ourselves, to teach people how to treat us, all of a sudden now we don't know what to say because we're taught like that's wrong. It's going to make us mean. Nobody's going to like us. And that has become the priority of women in patriarchal communities. And I think it's even more so in communities of Black and brown people, because you have the parenting that says keep your mouth shut and don't say shit. Well, guess what? We're not doing that anymore. And I'm going to be talking about how you start to use your voice, why it's important, things that may come up in the process. So let's jump right in, okay? One of the most powerful ways you can use your voice is by setting a boundary. And a boundary, and listen, let me start by saying Dr. Nedra, who I found on Instagram, who to me is the pioneer of the modern boundary, please go read her book, because what I'm about to talk about, I learned from her. Whether you get the book or you get the audio or you get the workbook, you got to go beyond just watching her on Instagram, because she's amazing there. But she taught me in such a practical way how to set boundaries and how to understand them. And y'all know I'm all about being able to practically do things, right? Because healing is about changing your life. Changing your life is about changing your habits and the actions you take. Okay? So a boundary, first of all, is a statement. Most people think a boundary is a conversation, something to be negotiated. It is not. It is a statement. People also use boundaries incorrectly to They say hold people accountable, but what they really mean is change people. Like, I set this boundary so they will behave differently, and they didn't behave differently, so my boundary must not have worked. And the boundary is not about someone else behaving differently. It's about the boundary is for you, how you will behave differently if people don't show up in the way that you need or want them to show up. Let me say that again. The boundary has nothing to do with them changing their behavior. It has to do with you, boo, you changing your behavior. Is not a tool of manipulation. It's not a tool to get people to be who you want them to be. It's so you can be who you need you to be. And there are, if I'm getting this right, I believe there's 3 parts to a boundary. Okay, let me talk myself through this because I just went through it when I answered my students' email. First of all, you state what you need or want or desire. You state it just like that. I need this. I want this. I desire this. So the example with my student, when I'm sharing something vulnerable with you, I need you to show up in a way that helps me feel safe. That is the need or the want. Second part, if you're not able to show up for me in this way, I will no longer be able to share certain things with you. That's the second part. So there's probably 3 parts in there, but I'm just gonna break it down real simply for you, right? So you have stated what the situation is. Maybe that's part 1, y'all. Part 2 is what you need. And part 3 is what will happen if you don't get what you need. This is the easy part. You might think this is the hard part. This is really the easy part. Part 4 is when they don't show up the way you need them to be, you have to do the thing you said in part 3. If when I share something with you and you shut down or you change the subject or you make me feel like I'm being too sensitive or being silly, it doesn't make me feel good. And I need to be in a relationship with someone who I can be vulnerable with and that I can share sensitive things with, and they respect that and they're able to process it and be there for me. And if you're not able to do that, I'm not going to be able to share sensitive and vulnerable things with you. And therefore, I don't know how, I don't believe our relationship can grow or move forward because that's something I need in a relationship. You see how I got quiet? Because that's the end. Then she talks about it not being a conversation. So somebody's going to come back and be like, oh, you're making too much out of this. Oh, I don't even know what you're talking about. Oh, you tripping. All you do is restate the boundary. When I'm sharing something vulnerable with you, I need someone who can A, B, C, and D. If you're not able to do that, I don't believe we will be able to move forward because in building a relationship, I need to feel safe enough to share with someone and know that they'll respect that and they can show up for me. Quiet again. You don't explain why. You don't go back and forth. How you feel is not up for negotiation. So let me back up now that we talked about the boundary. How do we get ourselves in this quandary where there's something that has happened, there's something that needs to happen once that thing has been said or done, because we feel this feeling inside. We are feeling angry, angst, embarrassed, ashamed, alone, abandoned, neglected. All of these feelings that we have always been feeling, at the hands of our mothers, being emotionally absent with us. And you have also been taught to ignore, to numb, to dumb down, to abandon all of these feelings yourself. So it's like, oh, that's just nothing. And you learn to distrust those things. A part of you finding and healing is you understanding your inner compass. Part of that inner compass is understanding how you feel. That's something else that we teach. That probably was week 2 in the Resolve program. Really understanding the vocabulary of your emotions and how to feel them, hold them, honor them, and act on them in a way that is supportive of you and advocates for your best. Because in the email, my student, her question was like, why are they saying that? What did they mean by that? So if I know what they mean, I can better respond. And what I let her know was, whenever, and I feel like I've talked about this somewhere, maybe I was talking to myself. When you have to ask why, that is your alert that somebody has crossed the line with you, because you are going into a place where something doesn't make sense. If I got to ask why, it don't make sense to me. And instead of asking why are they doing something, the question is, how does what they just said or did make me feel? That's all that's fucking important. Other people's intentions are not what you need to understand. What you need to understand are people's impact on you. How did what they say or do impact you? That needs to become your first priority. If you walk across the street and you got the right of way and somebody hit you with their car, the first question should not be, why did they hit you with their car? No, the first question needs to be, is my leg broke? What is the care that I need for myself? Not, oh, well, maybe they were on their phone. Maybe they made a mistake. Maybe their brakes went out. Maybe they were drunk. Maybe they just looked the wrong way. All this type of shit. Or you thinking about, maybe it was my fault. Maybe I shouldn't have been walking across the street. Was the light green? When you know goddamn well, their light was red and you had the walk sign. Those are the things, how you have to shift your thinking. And then when you can shift your thinking back to, how did that impact me? How did it make me feel? And once you decide, oh, that didn't make me feel good. I don't feel good with that. Oh, this is someone who I regularly engage with. Okay, I've got to retrain them how to teach me, because how they've been responding with me is how I've allowed, which is how I've taught them to treat me up until this point. So now I got to go into reteaching. And the boundary, the statement, is how you start that process. Is how you begin to verbalize the changes that you need to take place so you can feel safe. This takes a lot of practice. This is a practice of authority and autonomy. And remember, healing your mother wound is all about you regaining autonomy. That autonomy we never got as little girls, where we couldn't speak up, where we couldn't say what we needed, what we wanted, how we felt. We couldn't advocate for ourselves. This is where we have to learn this. Like I always say, is it fair we got to learn it at 30, 40, 50, 60 years old? No. But is it our responsibility? Absolutely, ma'am. Learning how to talk, learning how to speak up for ourselves is critical in healing. And the more, if you've been doing this work for a little while, if you're learning to treat yourself better, it's easier for you to set these boundaries with others. But if you are finding it very difficult to set boundaries with others, then you probably are not setting good boundaries with yourself. And how you take care of yourself, how you value yourself, probably needs to be examined so that you are able to easily transition into showing up for you. So much of how we look at the impact of our mother wound is like how our other relationships look in our life. And we're like, damn, I've been left, I've been abused, I've been abandoned by so many people. Nobody is ever there for me. That is really what I hear so often about, like how this wound impacts us, how it leaves us feeling alone, how it leaves us on the outside looking in. And I'm telling you, we can change this. You have the power to build a new reality of support and community around you. Now, That doesn't mean when you set the boundary, you get to keep everybody that's in your life. That's the part of this that everybody don't like. They're like, that means I'm gonna have to get rid of them. I'm gonna have to get rid of them. I have to get rid of them. Well, you already said they were no good for you anyway. So what you have decided is I'll take what I can get as far as relationships with people. Romantic, friend, family, whatever it is, job. And I'm here to tell you, you don't have to do that. So in setting these boundaries, some people might not like it. Some people may walk away, or you may have to walk away. But in that, you leave room for others. But don't it feel good to stand up for yourself? And this isn't about, I'm gonna tell you what you did to me and you wrong. You don't have a right to tell somebody what they are wrong and what they should do and what they shouldn't do. That's how we get caught up thinking, well, I did tell them. I told them it hurt my feelings. Okay, and now what? Well, they should know not to do anything to hurt my feelings. No. What are you going to do when somebody hurts your feelings? What is the action you're going to take? And that's the line you're going to have to walk when it comes to autonomy. That is the regard you want to hold for yourself. Think about, I always use this example. If you have a little girl and she's, it don't even matter. I always say like she's 3 or 4 years old, but what if she's even 15 or 16 and she comes to you and she says, how this person treated me made me feel small. It made me feel scared. It made me feel alone. You got your chest poked out with your pistol out, ready to go and set shit straight, but you're not willing to do that for yourself. You'll keep putting up with it because it's like, well, it's family. Is that what you would want for your daughter? Whether you have a real or imagined child. Some of y'all got real kids and you need to be looking at that like, oh my God, what am I teaching my kids? What am I teaching them to put up with because somebody has a certain title or they've been in your life for a certain amount of time? And what should be. I was telling my students the other night, don't should all over yourself. Don't get caught up in what should be. You better look at what is and deal with that accordingly. And then you have to trust that the right people will show up because they will. And it might be a moment when it's just you. But I'd rather have me all the way than have some half-assedness of people around me and I've completely abandoned myself. So that's really what I wanted to talk about, is how you begin to set boundaries. You start to use your voice. I know y'all gonna talk about feeling guilty. Oh, I feel so guilty saying this or saying that. Feeling guilty and being guilty are not the same thing. I know I've said that in past episodes. I'm gonna keep repeating it. You have been programmed to believe that you should put other people's feelings and emotions first. It's just a programming. So that's what you're going through. You are reprogramming yourself. And that is going to take some time. It is going to take some practice. So when you do set these boundaries and you do feel guilty, let yourself know. Feeling guilty and being guilty are not the same thing, baby. The best thing you can do is always show up for yourself and then find a way to console yourself. If you've been doing this work, if you've been rocking with me, I've been talking to you about how you nurture yourself, how you reparent yourself. Go back and listen to some of those past episodes and practice those things with yourself to let you know that you're not alone. Because she's happy that you looked out for her, but now she's scared that she's going to be punished. That fear of punishment, again, let's take it back to what makes this mother wound different for Black girls. The level of punishment that we have had to endure for being ourselves is really fucked up. It's abusive, okay? So you also now have to let her know you're safe. Nobody's going to take anything away from you. Nobody can hurt you. I'm going to advocate for you. I'm going to protect you. And then she probably won't believe you in the beginning because guess what? You have not been protecting her. But this is the way that you show her that you mean business. So it's going to come up. There's no way around it. Don't send me no message talking about, well, what do I do if I feel guilty and they don't like me? Console yourself. Let them do what they are going to do. Don't let anybody emotionally bully you. Get a vocabulary for what's happening. Don't let people emotionally bully you, and understand what it means to have people there for you that support you, and understand that you deserve that. This is going to take practice. It don't happen overnight, but this is where you can get started. I love y'all deeply. I really get fired up about this one, because if you just start to practice it, it becomes so much easier. And then the more you do it, it feels so good. Oh, it starts to feel so good because you're like, oh, I'm free. Using your voice is so important. This is a skill that we have to learn on this healing journey. Thank y'all, as usual, for rocking with me and for being here. If you're watching me on YouTube, subscribe, like, share, comment like you always do. And if you're listening on the podcast, please leave a rating. Please tell everybody why you love this podcast. It goes a long way. Thank you guys so much, and I will talk to you next week. Thank you for listening to the Black Mother Wound podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and make sure you comment, subscribe, and rate the show. You can keep the conversation going over on IG at Black Mother Wound, and click the link in the show notes to download the free Mother Wound Healing Guide. See you next week.